Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. It's pretty catchy. You can tell that music is like scientifically designed to be catchy. You can try to be a purist and you can try to hate it, but science has stepped in.
Much like the chemical factories that design the smells and tastes that go into fast food to make us want it, there must be factories somewhere in the world designing and crafting scientifically proven musical beats, and all the little elements that hot pop artists need, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly how it works, and it's frustrating because you try to be above it all, but you can't be because of science.
Do you think you can? The people who work in the factory, do you think they go home with those tunes in their head every day? They must.
That must be a curse.
Yeah,
That is a curse.
it is.
Oh. Have you seen that thing that's floating around? It's a one of those viral nonsense
Spaceship?
things about Thor and science.
I have
Screenshots of it's just screenshot. It's really very funny. I'm looking for it right now because it's very funny. It's like all it's all like screenshots of what's her name?
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman, and you know, all the little character bubbles, the speech bubbles over her, like science. Oh my gosh, science, and then they came from another science, and then it cuts to like shots of her in, you know, when Thor's house,
Asgard.
and Asgard says, "Oh my gosh, science everywhere. Oh my god, science." So funny. I have to find it.
I don't think you have to. I think that was actually probably better.
Oh my gosh, science.
Nothing like having you deliver it.
It's
Make my
great.
day. Yes.
Oh my gosh, science everywhere. Have you been, my good friend? How are you? Feeling good?
Feeling good. You know what?
Did you get stung by a bee?
Yeah,
Did I hear that?
You know what? Yeah, I did. I actually purposefully got stung by a bee today.
You did not. Why would you do that,
did. I did.
dummy?
Well, today was the test sting, just to make sure that I don't have a horrible allergy that will kill me.
Wait a minute. So you didn't know this? You don't know if you have an allergy?
No, I didn't think I did. I've been stung before, and I've never had reactions.
So why did you decide to go all in this time?
You know, why not?
Was it some sort of a staged thing? Like, did you go to a place where they said, "Here, bee, sting"?
No, actually, my boss's son has a beehive. Like he, uses it to make honey and pollinate his garden and all of that. And I was talking to him about it and about my elbow because I have tendonitis that really flares up and it drives me nuts. So he said, "Oh, have you ever tried this?" And I was like, "No, that sounds crazy."
Why would one do this?
That's right. He said, "You should try it." And I looked it up, and sure enough, it's a thing. And I'm like, well, yeah, why not? I'll give it a try. So he just dropped by work. I was sitting there working.
And he brought you a bee.
Brought me a jar of, actually, he brought 3 bees, but one, just making sure, just in case I needed an extra or one died on its way or got away or whatever. And then he stung me. And
so I need to hear more about that. So he just put the bee on you?
Yeah, he picks it up with a tweezer
and
then
he
holds it on me and basically kind of, just kind of pisses the bee off.
It gets mad, yeah.
And the bee stings me. And then of course, once the bee uses its stinger, it dies because when it pulls away, it's all of its innards rip out with the stinger. So it pumps its poison into you, and then you pull the stinger out, and then you wait. And then, if it works, or if I'm not allergic, then I, like every, week or two, I get 4 or 5 stings in my elbow. And the idea is that the toxins get pumped in there, and all my white blood cells rush to repair or get rid of the poison. And while they're there, they happen to kind of work on everything else.
So this is a therapeutic stinging. Is what you're saying.
It is.
Wow.
I like a little pain with my healing.
That's
what it is.
Did he bring over any, leeches or
what was that thing they did in the olden days where they'd like lay you down and they would heat up little glass jars and put them on your back to suck the toxins out?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know why one would do that, but that was done. That was the thing that was done.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
all sorts of fun things.
Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you, now that you've had that, I have found the thing, The Adventures of Jane and Science.
Oh,
I'm going to post it. I'm going to post it on the blog because it's so brilliant. It is so brilliant. Wow. So much science. I'm having a science-gasm.
Oh, man. She'd be really into this bee stinging science.
Because of science.
Because it's science.
What light through yonder window? Science. Oh, it's so good. All right. So, welcome to the next reel, everybody. The next real science. This has been just a real treat, bringing you this little bit of bee, the wonders of bee science.
Apitherapy is what it's called.
That is not true.
It is.
Apitherapy? That has nothing to do with bees. It's biotherapy. That's what it should be. And it should have apostrophes.
No, because biotherapy sounds like it relates to bio and stress sweat.
No,
and I'd rather not have therapy.
You're right, because of you didn't catch. I said with an apostrophe. That means it's Irish science. It's biotherapy. Yeah, it's all about the emphasis.
Faith and Bigora.
Okay, so this is The Next Reel. You can find us at thenextreel.com. You can join the conversation at facebook.com/thenextreel or twitter.com/thenextreel or where else? Instagram now, right? Are you still doing that, or have you given it up?
No. I've only done it, 3 times so far.
Hey,
3 weeks.
3 for the money.
Yeah.
You should play the game.
Yeah, a little weekly. It's not really much of a game if you listen to the show when we're when it's live because when we're going to record. But it's fun. It's fun.
That's good. I'm glad. And so you can find it there. You can find us also. This is the real important stuff. Is you head over to flickcharts.com/thenextreel or letterboxd.com/thenextreel. That's where our lists of movies and our overall top ranking list, you can catch up with us there and join us and share your lists, and we love to hear about that.
And subscribe on iTunes.
Oh, yeah. Subscribe on iTunes so you don't miss a single episode of the show. You'd think we haven't done this 98 times.
That's right.
Every week it's just a kind of a gamble that we'll get it all in.
That's right. Leave us a comment, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. There's a good contact page. Do that. We spoil movies heavily, even movies that are really, really old and really, really new. We spoil them all. That's what we do here. And so please definitely step away from your audio device of choice and see the movie if you don't want to be spoiled. Spoiling begins almost immediately after the bee science.
That's right.
That's our introduction. There we go. Shall we do trailers? Let's talk about trailers.
Let's. Who's first? I think I'm going first this week.
Okay. All right, do it.
So my trailer this week is All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, which on the surface level sounds like a nice little, a romantic drama, kind of one of those nostalgic looks back on high school and the girl that everybody loved or something like that. But no, it's actually another horror film. And it actually, it looks like an interesting film. And the way they set it up is actually kind of, it's almost like that retro high schoolers, this girl who's the good girl, everybody wants to date her, but she kind of stays away from everybody. But she agrees to go to this weekend party. And then all of a sudden, something happens and things go bad at this party as like some killer starts picking off these high school kids one at a time.
So you're bullish on this movie.
I'm not. I am. I'm excited about it. I think it looks interesting. The thing about this film is, and I don't know really how good it's going to be or not, but the thing that I find interesting about this film is this film was made in 2006. This film has been sitting on the shelves for 7 years now. It premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2006. TIFF is about to happen right now, so it was 7 years ago. And what happened was this was a huge hit at the festival back in 2006. The Weinsteins picked it up. They had a big bidding war for this movie, paid $3.5 million to distribute it. And then they did a test screening of it, and the audience didn't connect with it at all. They didn't get the tone of it. And so the Weinsteins weren't sure what to do with it. They were going to try to do... The Weinsteins really liked it. They thought it was a really intelligent horror film, and they wanted to do kind of a limited release where it would release in just a few theaters here or there and kind of build word of mouth. There was, I guess, some arguments about that, and so it ended up getting sold to a different company. They... shortly after they bought it, they basically collapsed. And this film has been kind of floundering in legal battles all the way up until just recently when the Weinsteins' video on demand division actually finally managed to get the rights. And Jonathan Levine, who directed it, it was his first film he directed back in 2006. He since has done Warm Bodies, 50-50, The Whackness. So he's definitely a director that we've all heard of now. But this at the time was his first feature film debut, along with an actress at the time who had not been heard of yet, Amber Heard, who we've all heard of now. And so now it's finally getting its release through video on demand, which actually is coming out today, September 6th. And then it's actually going to get a limited theatrical release starting October 11th.
Okay. So I was interested in this because of Warm Bodies, right? I mean, that's why I kind of got excited about it. But the trailer itself didn't strike me as anything particularly interesting, and I was worried about all of the buzz making it something, oh my gosh, here are two people who liked this film, but everybody else didn't get it. It sounds a little bit like You're Next.
Well, and I
and the two people I'm mentioning are, you and your little friend.
Me and me and myself. Well, no, here's the thing. I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but I am curious to see it because it did get a lot of buzz at TIFF, just like You're Next 2 years ago.
See? Not helping your case.
I'm not helping my case at all, am I? But I think it looks like an interesting horror film. The look of it, I love the look of it. It's got kind of a retro look. So it actually doesn't, even though it was filmed 7 years ago, it doesn't look dated because it just has this perpetual retro look. And I don't know. I'm excited to see it. I think there will be something interesting to see in it. And if nothing else, this is where, it's the starting point for Jonathan Levine. This is where he got it all started. So I am curious to see it and to see how it does.
I'm curious too. I'll go on the record and be curious about that. And I'm excited about it. I like it because it's a clever title. It sounds like a song.
It does sound like a song, and it actually reminds me of kind of some of those 70s horror films that had really long titles, so.
Right. That's good.
So yeah, that's my trailer.
All right. My trailer is not that. What am I doing for a trailer? I'm doing David O. Russell's new one. Have you seen this trailer?
American Hustle. Oh, yeah.
Just now, did you see it? This is Christian Bale, Amy Adams, written by Eric Singer and David O. Russell. Also stars Jennifer Lawrence, Bradley Cooper, Robert De Niro, Jeremy Renner, Jack Houston, Louis C.K. briefly, Michael Pena, Elizabeth Rom, Alessandro Nivola. This is a fantastic cast, and the trailer... it just makes me happy. It's kind of a weird, it's a heist, kind of a heist film. It's a con film, and it is it looks like a really interesting period piece. Takes place in the 70s, just the characters look fantastic. It's great to see them in this sort of vibe. I like a lot of David O. Russell's stuff. There's also a lot I feel like I don't get. Mm-hmm. And so I'm worried because, I look at Silver Linings Playbook, I look at The Fighter, and those are fantastic, and I look at I Heart Huckabees, and I think, what? And then Three Kings, and I love it, and then Flirting with Disaster, huh? And so I'm sort of hot and cold on David O. Russell stuff, but I definitely am bullish on this film. It looks like enough of a quirky character kind of crime film that I think it's got a lot going for it. So I'm excited about it.
Well, it doesn't look at all in the I Heart Huckabees vein.
Not at all.
It completely looks more like The Fighter, just kind of period, interesting story with really interesting characters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so too. That's one of the reasons. There are a couple of these movies, these sort of 70s period films that are out right now. I mean, we haven't talked anything about Lovelace, for example, which is one that I am absolutely fascinated to see, and I have not seen it yet, but I from what I hear, the way they just structured the film. Have you heard about this?
I haven't heard how they've structured it. It hasn't really been on my radar as something.
Well, it will be now. Get ready.
Pursuing.
Get ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The first half of the film, the entire first half of the film, this is again according to, them who know, the entire first half of the film is the happy version of Linda Lovelace's story in the porn industry, as is sort of portrayed by the before now, but the media, that this is what everybody thinks it's like in the porn industry, and Linda Lovelace leading up to Deep Throat and all of those things, and then it turns halfway through the film, and apparently it goes back to the beginning of the story, and you see her more of her experience, and it is very dark, and it retells the story as it quote happened, and I find that fascinating. That is a dramatic structure that I'm really interested in seeing. I think it sounds really interesting, and so that's another one that's on my list. It's not my trailer, but it's there.
Well, you're right. In the vein of interesting looking period films, it does have an interesting vibe. I'll be curious to see how it does. I haven't heard great things about it, but
you're talking about Lovelace or Hustle, right?
About Lovelace.
Yeah.
About Lovelace.
Yeah. No, I haven't.
Although you're right, the structure does sound like something that would be at least interesting to see, even if it doesn't end up working.
Right. That's it. Let's talk about our film.
Let's.
Shall we? Tonight we are continuing our nearly never-ending series of the drama of the Brothers Coen with 1996 crime film Fargo.
Once upon a time,
Looks like she's gonna turn cold tomorrow. Yeah, you got that right.
there was a salesman called Jerry Lundergaard
Okay, real good then.
who always dreamt of striking it rich.
Wade, have you had a chance to think about that deal I was talking about, those 40 acres there in Wayzata?
Jerry, we're not going to just give you $750,000.
No, but see, So, we all set on this thing then? You want your own wife kidnapped? Not her dad.
You know what I love so much about this movie is there's some really great poster artwork, but the one that I like the most, which I think really sets the tone for what my understanding is the tone that the Coen brothers were trying to establish here, is the poster that is needlepoint.
That has long been one of my favorite movie posters. I think it's an ingenious way to depict a story of crime, and just the tagline on it also, a tale of homespun murder. It just fits so well with everything about this film. People in a small town in Minnesota, in a Minnesota small town, where everybody kind of has this unwritten rule of that Minnesota nice that they call it, where everybody is always nice to each other, and the way they talk is nice, and everything is nice. Putting all that and putting this horrific crime story into that world, I think that poster defines it so well. Needlepoint, blood in the snow.
It is. It's like, the sweater's already red, so they can't do blood as blood. So it's kind of a taupe. The blood is kind of a taupe, and it just looks kind of dirty on the nice, clean white yarn, and the overturned car in the background is just brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, and I think it really sets up that the vibe that one critic whose name suddenly I can't find said this is like the dark side of a prairie home companion.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. This is a crime story. It's sort of it's very much got a Blood Simple vibe to it, with the that same sort of confused criminal relationship, and it is told then in the snow.
Yeah, and it even goes so far as to have a scene that it never struck me until watching it this time. The moment when there's the dead cop on the side of the road. This is driving at night, and he's trying to move it off the road and another car is coming. It never struck me until watching this time that was straight out of Blood Simple. It was the exact same scene, except in Blood Simple, he manages to prop him up, and of course, he's not quite dead, and so he vomits blood all over his back and all that horrible stuff.
One of the many vomits of Blood Simple.
Yes, that's right. In this particular case, he doesn't manage to get the cop out of the way. The car is approaching much too quickly. And, of course, it's got that beautiful slow shot of the two in the car as they basically witness the entire crime and then speed off.
Well, and that's one of the sort of legendary clips from this film is the slow motion head turn of Peter Stormare as he recognizes the fact that he has been recognized. Mm-hmm. Which is you see that and you're like, I've seen that 1,000 times. It's in every Coen Brothers retrospective. And it's funny that it's from this sequence that is essentially a repeat of a sequence from Blood Simple.
Yeah, and they even repeat it in this because you get the exact same thing when Jerry is driving by the airport booth later in the film, and he drives by and he looks at the dead body in the booth, and it's got that other brilliant shot of Jerry as he kind of looks over and sees the dead body in the booth.
Right.
And you got the same thing in Barton Fink when he looks out the door and you see him looking down the hallway. So it definitely, I've never really caught on to that, but it does seem to be quite a little theme of their characters kind of looking and watching as the camera moves by.
Before we dig too deep into, I want to talk more about the setting and the kind of the role Minnesota plays into this. But the first thing I think I need to get off my chest is this thing fact or fiction? Because, and I'm going to tell you why. Here's what I know. I know that a lot of people, in the beginning, it says it's based on a true story, right? And then at the very, very end, it says nothing in here has been, there's no, it does the thing, right? It says no
characters are based
on a real life, are all fictitious, right? And so, Snopes.com, this is even debunked on Snopes.com, right? That says this is, the Coens are all about finding their, putting these little jokes in. And there is another quote from another reporter in Minnesota. It says, however, repeated efforts by the Minnesota media to unearth any even vaguely similar real-life case have proved entirely unsuccessful, and suspicions that this could be another coy artifice from the Coen brothers are heightened by Ethan Coen's introduction to the published screenplay of Fargo, which concludes that the movie aims to be homey and exotic and pretends to be true. And then I'm watching this 18-minute conversation between my dear friend Charlie Rose and the Coen brothers and Frances McDormand, and he says, is it true? And Ethan Coen says, yes, it is true. The characters are made up, but the story is true.
Right.
I don't know who to believe.
It's not easy to know who to believe when it comes to the Coen brothers because they are little jokesters, and I think a lot of the stuff they say is they set up these things. I think the Charlie Rose interview, this is my theory, when you put it all in chronological order, the Charlie Rose interview happened at the time they were doing press for the film.
Exactly.
I don't think that they were admitting that it was all false at that point. I think, according to
this is their first answer. It's a cheeky answer. He says, "Who says?" I say, "Is it true?" Or this movie is. I can't remember how Charlie Rose put it, but something that the answer between both the Coens looked up and says who? Like, of course it's true.
Right. It's supposedly they did pull pieces of these actual stories together. I mean, I guess what they're saying is, one, you can use whatever you want from wherever you want, and it creates its own truth. I don't know. It's their own take on what is true, I guess. Supposedly, they did take some cases from, or some elements of everything that happened from just cases that happened all over the place, like the wood chipper incident. Supposedly happened in 1986. Somebody, a woman, was murdered by her husband in Connecticut, and got rid of her through a wood chipper. So they're not specifically focusing on Minnesota. As for the rest of it, it's probably somebody probably stole some money somewhere. Somebody probably faked a kidnapping, and they pull all these little pieces and that they've probably just heard on the news. And what I heard long ago was, oh, their grandmother had told them a story about some hidden money buried in the snow somewhere. So they probably pull all these elements and create their own truth that becomes true because it's the story that they're telling. That's my take on the whole thing.
It's kind of like, they pulled so many things together that suddenly it becomes true to them.
Exactly. Right.
That's right. Okay. So it's hypnotically true, aspirationally true.
Yes. Well, and if you look at any film or any story, the elements within that story are true within the context of the story. So, see how subversive that is.
That is totally subversive. Yeah. And you're a liar, is what you're saying.
In other words, Smaug is real.
Hobbits are really short. Right? This is all true.
It's all true.
All right.
They're all true stories.
All right. So, now back to the movie. The thing that sticks out to me in terms of where this film does a one-up on the general crime caper that was Blood Simple is introducing a new character, which is the environment, the setting. How would you say Minnesota, in this case, plays a role in the importance of this film?
The Coens, it is a crime story like any other crime story. But like I was saying earlier, by putting it in Minnesota, which is where they're from, they kind of grew up in this environment with all the snow, and they wanted to shoot here specifically for a lot of those reasons. It does add where you can have this, amazing amount of this kind of Swedish, Norwegian, this Nordic heritage. And you have people with these crazy accents, albeit maybe some of them are a little over the top. But it's an element that you don't see in films very often. And by putting a story in this different world, it really casts a spell on us watching a horrific crime story that, put this in LA, it becomes a lot less interesting. We've seen that world, how many times in films? Countless. To the point where it's just not that interesting anymore. By putting it in a world where we're interacting with characters that don't ever see this type of story, it all of a sudden introduces a whole new layer to the story. And it ends up embodying this additional element to the story where it's just everything is just this, it's frozen. It's almost like this whole thing is frozen in time, and we are witnessing, a crime of, I guess you could almost say, of modern sensibilities in this frozen period that seems like it's from ages ago.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I think you see that play out when she goes to the Twin Cities, and everything sort of speeds up.
Right.
We have everything gets kind of comes up to normal speed, but as soon as she goes back to Brainerd, we get a sense that rules change, and not only do kind of rules of the universe change, but rules of language. It's like they speak a different language that we are sort of miraculously introduced to and understand, but not quite. And that makes it sort of more of a fantasy or a fable, a fairy tale. And I think that the cold and the way these characters interact with it and the normalcy with which they treat the cold, I found myself, really fascinated by how they interact with the implements of cold, jackets and coats and boots and things. It's just sort of a magical process watching them gear up to go in and outside. And there is a sequence when Marge goes to see Jerry and question him about the cars and say, when is the last time you did an inventory? And he freaks out. He gets all upset. The pressure is rising on him, and this is where he blows off his steam. And he does a dance with his jacket and hat to put it on as he's doing this preening kind of show for her to go out and do his disgruntled inventory while she sits there and waits. And I found myself really mesmerized by what is required to live in this environment. And I think that really just sort of changes the dynamic of the drama.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It slows you down. It makes it harder to work. It makes it harder to do anything. I mean, you really have to be motivated to step out into and do these things, you know?
Right. And you get a feel for that when you see the way Marge, for example, relates with the cold, and the way the criminals relate to the cold, who are not obviously from there. They still sort of get it. But you can tell it's a fish out of water kind of a story for them too.
Yeah, and Marge clearly is, much more at home in it, even though she has problems with it. Prowler needs a jump, being a perfect example. But, she takes it in stride, and it's just another part of life.
Yeah, that's just part of normalcy and being pregnant in that kind of universe.
Yeah.
Which I think was adds an extra sort of, that becomes the comedic element, I think, for me, that every time we turn around there's something related to her being the chief of police and pregnant in this universe that is that is fantastically funny.
Yeah. Well, leave it to the Coens to create interesting characters.
Well, and I think her role with her husband.
Yeah. Who she apparently doesn't know is actually the Zodiac killer.
Hey, good. That's good. That's very good.
This is where he went. He moved off to Brainerd.
Right.
Marry the police chief. Who'd have thought? Nobody's going to look there. Good old John Carroll Lynch.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
We don't meet the chief until about a half hour into the film, 32 minutes into the film. But when we do, we see I think a really interesting relationship between these two people, and it is played off as something that is completely normal. And I don't know that it's necessarily celebrated enough just how normal they play it in this film. Their relationship is it's an interesting role reversal to me. Go ahead.
It is. It's a fascinating role reversal where he's the one who, they talked about kind of their backstory and how he at one point had also worked for the police department, but she is the one who ended up getting promoted to chief, and he, didn't feel that it was appropriate to keep working there while she was the chief, so he stepped down, and he was able to, while she's chief, he's now able to spend his time focusing on his art, doing his bird art, and submitting it for postage stamp, getting it on the postage stamps and stuff. And so, yeah, it is a really interesting twist where she is the one who's going out pregnant to stop crime, and he's the one who's definitely much bigger, and but he's the one sitting at home painting and going ice fishing, and it's a totally different life.
And it's so natural for her to say, "Oh, I got to stop at the store because I've got to pick up some worms."
Yeah, I got to pick up some night crawlers
for Norm, which is just sort of a normal thing. And I think that's the part that I find so kind of brilliant about the relationship. And the way we're introduced to these characters is visually through his work, not hers. At that 32-minute mark, we get a slow fade in on a mallard duck painting.
Canadian goose, I believe.
Canadian goose, and then it pulls back, and there's a model of a duck, and it kind of goes over all of the implements of art, and then we cross the room in one kind of long pan to see her kind of. It's the middle of the night, and she's sleeping. She wakes up to a phone call, and so we're introduced to this relationship of theirs through the domestic art of Norm, and I love that it adds that sort of extra celebration to this role reversal in a way that is really benign ultimately to the story, but they add a lot to it by really focusing on the art in that piece.
Yeah, and it enhances that lifestyle that we're experiencing here in small town North Dakota.
Right.
So,
all right, I've been talking too much. It's your turn.
The interesting thing about the way this story is structured is really at the beginning of the film, it starts with us meeting Jerry Lundegaard, and he's going to meet Carl Showalter and Geir Grimsrud, the two kidnappers who are going to kidnap his wife, and he's kind of sets up this whole story. The interesting element of that structure is by putting the story in Jerry's shoes, and now we're watching Jerry as he's essentially guiding the story and trying to create this whole story. It's essentially Jerry's story that we're watching. And what happens when we have Jerry, this criminal, he ends up being the protagonist of the story in a large sense, because he's the one kind of guiding the story. And so we have half hour in when we have Marge introduced.
Yeah, the whole tone of the story of the whole the entire story pivots.
And she ends up becoming, in a way, and it's interesting, the structure, she ends up becoming kind of the antagonist of the story. She's the one who is trying to stop him from this crime and solve this whole story of murder that's going on in Brainerd, and just unraveling this crazy thing that Jerry Lundegaard has basically set into motion. And I think it's just interesting the way that you can structure a story where your protagonist is not necessarily a good person, and is essentially like just leading the story into just horrific territory. And your antagonist is really just trying to stop the protagonist. It doesn't mean the antagonist is a bad character. It just means they're trying to stop the protagonist, who is basically guiding your story. And so you have your antagonist come in, Marge Gunderson, who really is trying to stop. And in a way, if you look at it through that window, it's almost like this story, because it doesn't work out for the protagonist, he's not able to pull off this crime and get all this money from his father-in-law and get his wife back and be happy. It's really kind of a not a happy ending for the protagonist. And so in a way, it's like, it's this, as far as the protagonist is concerned, it's a very downer ending, and our antagonist wins. If you put that story in Star Wars or something like that, it's not the story that we want to see. And so it's really interesting the way that they've switched the roles, because she comes in so late in the film. It's just interesting the way that those roles end up getting switched, and we end up rooting for our antagonist as the story progresses, and we want to see her beat and solve this mystery that this protagonist has set into place. And I think a lot of that comes from this amazing small town homegrown vibe that Marge and Norm Son of a Gunderson have, and this vibe that they have of this Minnesota nice.
Wow, that's a really interesting way to frame it, because I did not look at it that way. I was not looking at it from the perspective of Marge being the antagonist to the perspective of Jerry.
Well, but because she comes in so late, you can't really call her the protagonist of the film. If she is, it seems awfully late to be introducing the protagonist to me.
I wonder if it would, if we didn't look at it from a matter of time, but of sort of time code, right, or linear time in the film, but rather screen time in the film. I wonder how that stacks up. I wonder if we get more of him on screen, or more of her. I
would guess that it's comparable. I mean, it seems like there's,
and that's how I looked
quite
at
a bit of both,
because it feels like two stories that are kind of going on at the same time, and we see the first half of this story in the first half hour, and then we get a lot of her story, and then we get the resolution. Right? They sort of they cut back and forth, but for the most part, once the story becomes Marge's story, we see it through to the end.
Yeah. And that's that's me looking at it in kind of modern screenwriting.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you.
Terms, and I cannot imagine that the Coens sit down and map it out like that.
Yeah.
And going, well, he'll be the protagonist, but he's really the bad guy, and so the
But there's
antagonist.
there's a better question though, and for you as somebody who teaches screenwriting, if somebody turned in this, if you've never seen Fargo, and somebody turned this in, what would your guidance be, looking at this script cold?
I don't think I would have any problem with it. I don't think there's a problem with having your protagonist be a bad guy and having your antagonist be a good guy. There's no reason that you can't swap those roles. I mean, you see it plenty of times. I mean, Falling Down is another example where you've got this, this horrific character that you're watching through the course of the film, and you're rooting for the cop to stop him because he's such our protagonist, Michael Douglas's character, is trying to, as I recall, he's trying to get back home so he can kill his ex-wife or something like that.
Right.
And so you're rooting for Robert Duvall's character to get him and stop him before he does. But Michael Douglas is the character who's guiding the story. He, therefore, is the protagonist of the story. So it can be done. I think it's a really fascinating way to tell a story. It's not a normal Hollywood way to tell a story, I don't think.
Because Hollywood would have introduced Marge in, much earlier.
They would have
after
said,
the
we've got to get her in the first act. We've got to get her, right away.
Yeah, and that may have been the only thing that they would have had to change in this film to make it a Hollywood film, is to, just intercut more of her story of discovery earlier on, more painting.
Yeah, right. I don't know what else she'd be doing.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of wandering around with night crawlers.
Exactly.
That's a really interesting way to do it. We've talked a lot about. We haven't talked a lot on the show, but we've talked a lot about the you and I about Breaking Bad and my newfound love for Breaking Bad. And
yes.
I am discovering what I think Vince Gilligan was doing, and that's the lens through which I was looking at Fargo, which is this idea that we have a sweet and noble character, protagonist, who is, over the course of events and over the course of an hour and however many minutes, turned bad.
Right.
And we end up, rooting for somebody else. And we're still, in this context, we're still sort of rooting for William H. Macy because he is a guy who is just stepped on everywhere he turns. And he got himself into trouble. But he's, particularly in the context of his relationship with, with his father-in-law, with Harve Presnell, there is this sense that we know he's a maggot, but in some case, we just, gosh, wouldn't it have been nice if things had worked out?
Yeah. The thing about it, though, is like, right from the start, he wants to have his wife kidnapped. I'm still hard pressed to say, yay.
I really love his character, Jerry
H. Macy. Yeah, I have a hard time with that. He's just, God, it's funny watching it this time. I'm like, okay, so Harve gets shot, his wife gets axed, he gets caught by the cops, and likely because his father-in-law is in his trunk and he's the perpetrator of this entire crime, he's probably hung or at least, put on death row.
But that's what I mean. By the end, he's the bad guy.
Poor Scotty is left familyless by the time of this film. And I was just thinking about that. It's like this kid who, we don't like that much. He's not that. He's an interesting character. He's got White Snake, hockey, accordion king posters on his wall. He's kind of an odd duck. But this kid, over the course of this week or however long it is, loses his mom and his grandfather, and his dad is the one who did it all.
Yeah. I totally agree. And that was, I think, one of the best moments in the film, when the assistant, his father-in-law's assistant, says, how's Scotty? And there's this look of realization on Jerry's face when he realizes, and I this is my reading of it, when he realizes that he hadn't thought about Scotty in this whole plan. And Scotty's like sitting alone. He gets home and wonders where his mom is.
That is, I had the exact same reading, so it's horrible. I mean, I appreciate William H. Macy in this role. I love him because he does this boob so well. I mean, he is such an idiotic cad. He really is, and I don't know why he really needs this money. I don't know what sort of trouble he's gotten these land schemes or whatever he's doing. Terrible idiot guy. And man, just like that scene when he just realizes, oh yeah, I haven't even thought once about my son in this whole thing.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's
brilliant.
I mean, he deserved an Oscar nomination for this role. He was really amazing in it.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about the protagonist antagonist argument here, but this is, I think, more than certainly at the time, more than any other film that the Coens had done, really, as they call it, an ensemble piece. If you're going to label it as such,
right?
We don't get the sense that we are really following any one character. It's we are following the story. More than any other, and I think that's I think that's interesting coming off of films like Barton Fink in particular, which was absolutely an actor's film.
But in a way, all of them, maybe not Blood Simple so much, but all of them so much have really been, you could almost say, novelistic films.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, in Miller's Crossing, we're following the story of a single character.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Even as an epic gangster flick, I mean, there are a lot of people in it, but we're focused on.
It feels that one feels so talky though. It feels like it could have been like an LA Confidential novel. So dense. Yeah, I could see a much longer novel that they worked to condense into that 2 hours.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay. Where are you ready to? Should we talk about any more cast members that you're really excited about?
I just a quick note about Harve Presnell, who I just love in this film so much.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He had taken a major hiatus from film from like the late 60s, early 70s until this time. And I'm not sure exactly why. I think he just wanted to step back. He's a guy who's been in theater and film and all that. But like back in the late 60s, he was in Paint Your Wagon. And other than, I think, a small role in 76's Bloodbath, I don't think he had been in anything other than, some TV, but no other feature films until 96. So it's interesting that he had stepped away for so long. And I'm glad that he came back.
Then in 96, he did everything.
Right.
He did a lot of stuff.
The Whole Wide World, Fargo, Larger Than Life, The Chamber, the TV show Nash Bridges, Easy Street, Star Trek Voyager, The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. He had a very busy 96, yeah. So when he jumped back in...
Man, he came really in a hurry.
Yeah.
Did a lot of TV for fans of Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, that's right.
He was all over the place. And one of my favorite short run films, Andy Barker PI, or not films, TV shows. That was too bad. He was in that for a long time. So we like him. He plays that. He's just that the voice you could never. You can't miss him.
No, he's just fantastic.
Yeah.
The let's see what else.
The unsinkable Molly Brown, man. That was. He's just. There are some wonderful stage pictures or stills from the unsinkable Molly Brown of him as a young man, and it's really a stunning transformation. What age has done to this guy.
That's what I really remember him for from that film, because I saw that movie so many times when I was a kid. And that character, it's indelible that, it's in my head, his character in that film. And so it's great to continue seeing him as he continued his career later in life. So I'm glad he did. Even though he's passed away since.
Let's talk about Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare.
Two fantastic character actors who they're just great. I guess they wrote this role for Buscemi, who had been in, I think, the previous 3 films, Miller's Crossing, and let's see, what was he in before? Miller's Crossing, or is this the 3rd film that he was in for them? Because he was in the Hudsucker Proxy.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was in anything before Miller's Crossing. He wasn't in Raising Arizona. Oh, and Barton Fink. Yeah, Barton Fink. So it was 3.
Yep.
Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, and the Hudsucker Proxy. And they wanted to give him a bigger role, and they thought that this would be a fun one. And so he's great. This is a fantastic pairing. And, we talked about Peter Stormare and how he was supposed to be in Miller's Crossing, and but because he was in a theater production of Hamlet as Hamlet, he couldn't get out of that. He lost that part, and they ran into him because I guess his wife was in another play with him, and they said, we'd love you to be in this other one if you can find the time. And he said, no, I'd love to do it. And so he looked at the script.
I'm sure they said it like that, all sarcastic. If you can find the time.
Exactly. Well, that's how he describes their interaction. He thought it was pretty funny. But he said he got the script, and he said they want you to play, Georg Grimsrud. And he looked at the script, and he's just like, there's hardly any lines. And then, then he kind of got into it. And he realized how fun it would be. And so they're a really fantastic pairing. They work so well. Whether it's, the little scenes with them driving in their car, talking about Pancake's house, or having the prostitutes come over to their hotel room, or whatever it is. They are a great pair because of this tension between them all the time.
I want to add, sort of almost parenthetically, the interview between Marge and the hookers, played by Larissa Kokernot and Melissa Peterman, is a real highlight for me in this film.
Absolutely.
Over and over and over again, repeating, he was funny looking. He was funny looking. Oh, no, nothing really other than he was funny looking. He wasn't circumcised. Oh, was he then?
And those two were actually from the area, I guess, and so those are their real accents. Those are not fake accents. That's how those two really speak.
Oh,
it's like a
so
whole
funny.
Other beautiful language.
It really is. It's very. You feel happier just hearing it.
Yeah,
it's a language of happiness. This is what really happy people sound like.
Yes. You know who the body is who gets shot, and the bloody body on the snow that's on that poster?
Who is that?
If you watch the credits, the person's name when it comes up looks like that symbol that Prince had.
Yes, the Ankh.
Yes, it's that crazy little symbol. It's actually J. Todd Anderson, who is the storyboard artist who has been working with these guys since Raising Arizona. They wanted him to be this guy who got plugged. So
that's funny.
He's popped up in a few other films. I think this is their only film that he's done, but their only film that he's acted in, I should say. But he has been storyboarding for them, and then from them, he's ended up. He met Barry Sonnenfeld. He did Sonnenfeld's films. He met through them George Clooney. He did George Clooney's storyboards. This is a guy who's been around for a long time doing a lot of storyboard stuff. So.
Yeah. Oh, look, he's done Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
Inside
Llewyn Davis. He just did their most recent one.
I can't wait to see that movie. I don't think you're as excited about it as I am.
I'm not, but I still want to see it desperately. So,
all right.
Even though I'm not excited about it.
But desperate, not excited.
I'm desperate.
Just desperate.
Yep.
Okay. Back to this.
Okay.
Film,
One more person that I want to talk. I don't know if there's anyone else you want to talk about, but the one other person that I really want to talk about is Steve Park, who plays Mike Yanagita. Because
yes,
and I don't want to just talk about him, but I want to talk about the whole Mike Yanagita part of the film.
I do too. Because that sets me sideways every time I see it.
Exactly. And I finally have figured it out, albeit with a little internet help, but I have it. I have it now. But anyway, Steve Park plays Mike Yanagita. He's an interesting actor who has been around for quite a while since I think Do the Right Thing is where he started as the Korean restaurant owner. And he has been in a lot of things, some less stereotypical and some more stereotypical, actually Falling Down. He was also in Falling Down, oddly enough. We were just talking about that.
Right.
But his role in Fargo, I think, is really great. After Fargo, he ended up kind of, I think he got a role on Friends that he was really, he felt really unhappy with the way he was treated. And he went on to write a mission statement in the spirit of Jerry Maguire to the Hollywood community about the really just how Hollywood still stereotypes Asian American actors so much. And it's an interesting missive. I feel for him. It's an interesting piece of work, and I hope that it's something that he was able to get more work, once he put it out there to the world and stuff. But it's worth reading and just looking at. And I don't know if it's really changed things that much, unfortunately, but it is interesting.
That is actually, that's very interesting. And I'm just sort of looking at the other roles that he's played, and they're all. Well, they're all, most of them are sadly stereotypical.
Well, and he said, at the beginning, I always feel like I'm playing some Asian restaurant owner or something like that, and he got his words about the people on set of Friends. He just was not he did not have a good experience there. Yeah. So it's rough. So, but anyway, he's great in this film. He's also in A Serious Man. He's great there. Well, and
yeah, go ahead.
And then I was going to jump into Mike Yanagita.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping you were going to do. Let's talk about how he's introduced and what his role is in this film.
It's a really strange role that it comes. I mean, he first calls her late at night after he's seen her on the news in relation to this whole crime, and kind of connects. And then when she goes down to the Twin Cities, she ends up meeting him for a drink. They meet in the bar or in the restaurant at the Radisson because it's a nice place, and he proceeds to kind of tell him about how he lost his wife and he's just having a really rough time, and breaks down right there. And it's such an amazing scene that I'm always fascinated with, because it strikes me as such a beautifully written character moment. And then you find out later in the film when she's talking to her friend and how she got together with Mike Yanagita, and she couldn't believe that whoever it was that he'd been married to had died. And her friend is like, "Oh no, she's not dead, she's still alive, and yeah, you should give her a call, she'd love to see you." And yeah, Mike, he had psychological problems, and he moved back in with his parents and all this stuff. And so it really throws you for a loop, that all of that whole breakdown and everything was completely false. Now,
and so punchline is, you actually know what you've researched this. You know what the intent was. I still don't get it. And it's a real problem for me.
Yeah, I've never understood it. And so I was reading around on the internet, and there, a few people have some theories, but the one that was predominantly popping up, which I think really makes sense, is the whole Mike Yanagita scene shows how Marge is really trusting in people, and she buys the story, and she feels for him, and she totally, goes right along with the whole thing. And really, there's no reason she shouldn't. It's not like there's any moments of falsity in there at all, but she buys into it. She doesn't ever question it. And it's not until her friend tells her that later, as she's getting ready to leave. She's already gone and interviewed Jerry at the car dealership and talked to him. Now she's getting ready to leave. No new leads. She's packing her stuff. She's talking to her friend. And then she finds this about Mike, that he had basically been lying, and this whole thing was this false story that he was telling. And it's immediately after that we see her as she's getting some food, and then she's driving and she's thinking, and because of that moment with Mike that basically got her thinking about people who are basically telling false stories, it made her think about Jerry Lundegaard, or at least, she wanted to investigate it a little more, that maybe there's more going on at that car dealership than she had originally found out. And so now she wanted to dig a little deeper just to see if there were some untruths there. And so that's what makes her, that triggers that in her head, and that's what makes her turn around and go back to the dealership.
Huh. Does that change your opinion of Mike Yanagita's character?
I mean, Mike Yanagita's character, it doesn't change my opinion of him at all. I still love the character. I love those scenes in the movie.
Well, yeah, I should restate. Does it change your opinion of the utility of that role in the film?
It's a Coen Brothers film. I don't think I do. I think I give that to them because it does, like, when I think about it, I'm like, that's a really interesting way to have her make that realization. And sure, I've never really understood it. And I can see it now that I was reading what some other people were saying on the internet. It kind of clicks for me now, but I liked that it wasn't something that was obvious, that it was an element of the film that I really liked, but I never really understood. That is a moment that, again, going back to Hollywood, saying, hey, you need to introduce Marge Gunderson up in your first act. You need to put her right away. They would probably also have said, and what is going on with Mike Yanagita? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have any place in this film. Cut it out. And you'd be losing a really interesting character moment in the story that, sure, you could probably cut all of those 3 scenes out and you probably wouldn't lose that much, but by having it in there, it just adds a little bit extra meat that once you kind of, bite into it and you really latch onto it, it's really tasty.
Riding that one all the way to the ground, aren't you?
I was.
I think love me some Yanagita. I think I'm torn a little bit on it because I absolutely see what you're saying, and I think it's that they make an awfully big deal of this particular MacGuffin, which is because they start it with a late night phone call.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like the late night phone call is the gun on the mantelpiece, and as it turns out, what we earn, the little trinket that we earn out of those 3 scenes, ends up not having not equating to the gun going off in Act 3, right? It's not a big enough earn for the weight that they put on that character. And so this is my popcorn movie jacket on, which is there are other efficient ways to get this point across without having that character in the film at all. But to your point, I think it certainly adds texture in a point in the film where we need texture. Yeah. Because without it, I mean, it just sort of jumps kind of awkwardly from the Twin Cities back to Brainerd without we don't learn a whole lot. Yeah. But I think I'm a little torn. I need to see it again with that eye.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth. I mean, I have always loved it just because I find it such a strange moment, even though I've never really gotten it. Mm-hmm. And now that I have that, I mean, maybe when I'm watching it again, I'm going to go, I can see Pete's point. It still is not 100% satisfying, but I don't know, just the way that I think that they're using that character to introduce that change in Marge's head, I think I think I like it.
Well, the problem that I have with that is that I feel like her character is so strong. I mean, what we learn from her is that she is a phenomenal investigator, and that's one of the things that gives us such an interesting and already textural context shock, that she is this 7-month pregnant woman in the middle of the essentially the Arctic, and she is a phenomenal policewoman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I almost feel like what we get out of the Mike bits detracts from the fact that she's already that we're establishing how good she is. And I like that, we obviously, I mean, it's good to see characters with these foibles, but I think the foibles are already set up in spades the environment notwithstanding. Her pregnancy, her ability to work is already challenge enough to have her second guessing her own style. It's just not big enough to me.
I can see that. I could also say, she's a great police officer. She's able to figure out the DLR on the license plate and all that sort of stuff. But the detecting and the way that the reading, the honesty of people, I mean, maybe she's not that level, and this kind of pushes her to that level.
Yeah. Okay.
I can see it both ways.
Yeah. All right.
I'm kind of liking it right now. So
you're good. No, that's good. I like that you're
there.
I'm
going to ride my Yanagita wave.
Ride it all the way to the ground.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Anybody else you want to talk about specifically on the cast before we move into production?
I don't think so. I think we've covered all of them.
So you might have heard the Coen brothers did this movie. Next. This is another one, another Roger Deakins film.
This is his third with them.
Yes, he's
Barton
damn near
Fink.
an expert.
He has been just working with them. I mean, I don't think he did their latest film. No, he didn't. But he's worked with them up through True Grit.
Yeah.
I wonder why he didn't do Llewyn Davis. I haven't heard
Should we
anything.
start a rumor?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll
Big
figure
fight.
that out. Big fight.
Yeah.
Anything stand out to you regarding the cinematography of this film?
This film, Roger Deakins talked about it. The camera work in this film, because of this quote unquote true story feel that they wanted to have in this film, they purposefully decided together, him and Joel and Ethan, decided that they wanted the camera work to be much more restrained than it had been in their previous two films, which we talked about Barton Fink. I mean, it had a lot of really interesting shots, like the move across the room into the sink and down the drain pipe, and just all those really interesting shots in that film. And then Hudsucker Proxy is just, cameras kind of all over the place. This is very restrained. There's not a lot of camera movement. The way that the camera is positioned is much less in characters' faces, much more set back. You'll see a lot more instead of when you're on a character's single, instead of just a single with just them in the shot, it's a little farther back so you get the shoulder of the other person. So you're stepped back a little bit from things. They really wanted to keep it that way all the way through. They also really wanted to focus on the white and black. And so obviously you have this stark white snow, and then at night, instead of kind of having kind of the bluish night tones that you see so often in films where you've got kind of that moonlight everywhere, they just went for black, where it was like when it was black outside, it was black and you couldn't see anything other than what you could see with the car's headlights. And so that was a really nice contrast between the kind of the two worlds that we have going on here. And then they really, and then windows, they really wanted to emphasize windows where you had a lot of background or a lot of people sitting in positions where they had windows behind them. And you see highways or roads with just lots of cars just going back and forth on these roads. And they really wanted, I'm not really sure what it was that they were specifically wanting, but it just seems like life just keeps on going is kind of what it seems. And you never know who's driving along that road. It could be an innocent little cop from the country, or it could be some crazy killers in a car coming to kidnap somebody. And it's just life keeps going, and you don't really have any idea who's out there. And kind of going back to the whole Yanagita thing, you're kind of trusting that, or you're acknowledging, or in your own head, you're kind of believing that the people out there on the roads are all good people, but you're not really thinking about how some of them could be these crazy killers and stuff. So that was an interesting thing. And then I also liked the use of blinds, particularly with Jerry Lundegaard when he's in his office, and how they would often shoot him. He had one of those glassed-in offices where he had windows looking out into the showroom. He was a car salesman. And you have those blinds, and you shoot from inside the showroom looking through the blinds at him. And so he always had these vertical bars around him. So he always looked like he was in prison. And I just love that.
That's a nice pickup. I didn't read into that, but I think that is very astute.
Yeah, it's just so fun to see that he's always trapped. I mean,
Yeah.
he really is.
Oh, he is trapped, and the sense that everybody knows, everybody can read him. Not only that's what I love about the just sort of visual metaphor of the glassed-in office is that he cannot. He just can't get a sense of privacy enough to actually make this thing work. Everybody's always watching him and always knows what he is doing.
Yeah.
And always, in a sense, sort of just one half step behind his latest and greatest scheme.
And, speaking to that, I think one shot that really exemplifies that is after he is trying to pitch this idea of this land sale and the $750,000 that he needs from his father-in-law and his father-in-law's accountant. They basically, in a way, basically cut him out of the deal without even giving him the finder's fee that they initially thought they were going to have to give him. It's this horrible situation. And you get this shot of him after he's just defeated as he's walking through this completely barren parking lot covered in snow with just his car. And it's a wide shot and it just is empty. But it's also, interestingly, from up high, almost as if they're looking out the windows at him. So you get this sense that everybody knows what he's doing, but at the same time, he's completely alone in this world.
That was exactly what I was going to... the scene I was going to talk about. The second one is after he gets off the phone. I think the second time he realizes he's being tracked down by the GMAC financier, and is told that if he doesn't produce these VIN numbers, he's going to be he's going to be reported to the legal department. And we get this shot where we pull back on the office from an exterior of his glassed-in office, and he picks up his his desk blotter pad, and he just slams it on the desk 4 or 5 times, and realize everybody is watching this irate kind of explosion of rage, but he can't keep it in anymore, and it no longer matters that he's lost all composure, because he never has a chance to do that in private.
Right.
Somebody's always coming, or on the other end of the phone, or just waiting for him to do something to screw up. Wonderful.
Yeah. Very, very beautifully shot and staged, all of that.
Carter Burwell, the music. I love the opening theme. Let me just get that out.
It's a great theme, and it's interesting because this is a film that I kind of always felt like he gets nominated for Oscars on like Burn After Reading, which I really didn't care for the music in that. It's like, gosh, his music in Fargo, his music in Miller's Crossing, those were all so much better. Why didn't he get nominations back then? But what are you going to do? It's great music. I guess that theme or the musical motif is based off of a Norwegian folk song called The Lost Sheep, which I didn't know.
I did not know that either. Lost Sheep. I'll have to see if I have that in my iTunes collection.
I know. I'm going to have to...
What I love so much about that opening sequence, I think the music plays a wonderful character in the opening of this film. For setting the tone of the film, but just the voice of the film. It starts out this wonderful kind of very light motif. This very sort of high light version is kind of, it feels like a fairy tale. It definitely we start on that sort of fable. And it builds to this incredible intensity. It builds to like Braveheart intensity, and you expect to see an army of Norsemen come across the tundra, and it never pays off that way. It's always these long shots of the car driving across the barren white snowy landscape, but the music is just so rich and vibrant. To me, it sets up that the sort of comic kind of visual construct of the film that I find myself laughing already, and I haven't even met any of the primary characters yet.
You're right. It does have that you could put this in a Viking film as their ships come through the fog and they land on the shore, and you see them in their horned helmets and their fur.
Whatever happens next, somebody's carrying an axe.
Right.
I mean, that's it. Which I think is it then that feeling it totally pays off. A, in the repeated visuals of Paul Bunyan in Brainerd, but B, in the way Stormare ends up killing Buscemi with an axe and, Chipper.
Well, I don't think the Chipper kills him.
The axe and Chipper combo.
That's the axe that kills him, and the Chipper just disposes of him.
That was not a good way to go.
It really isn't. It really isn't. And the thing that I love about it is, if he had just paid him for that car, he probably would have made off with near $1 million.
Yep.
But no, he hates this guy so much that he just has to go off on him and say, "There's no way in hell I'm going to pay."
I got shot in the face.
Yeah, there's no way I'm paying for your half of the car. It's mine.
And the money is gone.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is a sad truth about the little lie that they told about this, it being a true story. Apparently, there was a woman from Japan who was convinced that this money was really buried out somewhere or sitting, somewhere off of the highway, one of the highways in Minnesota or North Dakota, and she came over from Tokyo and was searching and searching and searching, trying to find that briefcase of money because she believed that it was true. And she ended up getting so distraught, apparently, or something like that, that she ended up committing suicide.
No.
Yeah.
That's a horrible story. Is that true?
That's according to the newspaper article I saw, yes.
That's a horrible story. Are you sure that wasn't set up?
I can't imagine they would set up a horrible story like that.
That's a horrible story.
I know.
Oh, well. This movie won a lot of awards, or certainly performed well.
It did really well. This was a kind of a year where a lot of indie films made it big at the Oscars. I think wasn't this the year that they were all independent outside Hollywood films except for Jerry Maguire. Yeah, it was The English Patient, Fargo, Jerry Maguire, Secrets and Lies, and Shine.
Right.
The English Patient, of course, won, and but yeah, Jerry Maguire was the big Hollywood film that year. So it was a good year for independent films.
Frances McDormand, her win speech at the Oscars was all about that. Congratulations to the studios that let filmmakers make their own casting decisions based on talent and skill rather than box office allure.
Right.
And this was the year that proved that can be done. If it hasn't been repeated often, but
yeah.
It certainly was a good year for it.
It definitely was. She won. The Coen brothers won for Best Original Screenplay, and that was it for wins.
Right, but
then,
it also it won Best Director at Cannes. It won Best Art Direction at BAFTA.
Yeah,
it performed very, very well in the awards circle, but it was also nominated for Best Picture, for Best Directing, for Best Supporting Actor, William H. Macy. Best Cinematography, it did not win, Roger Deakins. What won for cinematography? Do you know that year?
Yes, it was.
Shine.
Wasn't it also The English Patient?
Was it The English Patient? It would have been The English Patient.
Let me check. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it won, or it was nominated for a whole bunch of Golden Globes too. Didn't win those either. Same Best Motion Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Screenplay.
Poor Roger Deakins has been nominated for 10 Oscars now and has yet to win. Starting with The Shawshank Redemption in 95, then Fargo, Kundun, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, The Man Who Wasn't There, No Country for Old Men, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford, The Reader, True Grit, and then Skyfall, and he has yet to win.
Well, that's really too bad.
There's some great looking films there.
Right. My goodness.
Yeah. That's just too bad. Hopefully soon.
Yeah. or he'll be 110 years old. They'll be wheeling him out for one of those honorary things. the admission of failure by the Academy.
That's right. That's right.
How'd the movie do in the budgetary arena?
It did well for itself. This was I think because of the awards buzz and because it was just really a film that people connected with. It cost $7 million to make, and which adjusted is about $10.2 million. And they spent making they made, let's see, $24.6 million domestically and about $36 million internationally. So all told, adjusted, they made about $88.5 million. So they, it did pretty well for itself.
Well, and I think the word buzz, the word of mouth, was sort of the symptom of the cleverness of this film and the Minnesota conceit, right? The Minnesota nice and the fantasy element that is introduced by the accents and the characters in this, just the uniqueness of the characters in this film make it one that was very easy to talk about. I remember talking about it to others about how clever this film was and how interesting it was and how interesting it is. It's to me, it's in that same category as Brick, where you take you sort of munge these genres together that you just have not seen together. It's and they do something really unique and interesting with it, and makes it easy to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it did very well, and it's
for a lot of people, I think it'll be one of the Coen. A lot of people will say it's probably their favorite Coen brother film. It's just a film that's easy to enjoy. It's got great characters. It's got a great story. It's really interesting. It's not as quirky or artsy as some of their other films. So, and because I think of just all the status and the buzz that it got back when it came out, I think a lot of people just will continue calling this their favorite.
Where do you put it among the Coen brothers films? Certainly the Coen brothers films we've done so far, and we're going to rank it here. So,
I absolutely love this film. I think of all of their films, I would probably still put No Country for Old Men on top, and then this below it. Maybe Big Lebowski, depending on my mood, but no, maybe Raising Arizona. But actually, I'd put Raising Arizona above this because that's a lot of nostalgia goes into that one too.
Yeah.
So, but it's way up in the top of the list.
All right, I think we should rank this thing. Shall we do that?
I have one more little thing to say.
Excellent. God, I knew it. This was going to be the day.
There's always one. This is really short, but I thought it was so interesting in Barton Fink how that they completely lucked out when they had that pelican land, like dive bomb into the water in that very last shot of the film. I thought that was just so fascinating. Well, at the very beginning of this film, they also conveniently lucked out with the bird, where as we kind of open on the white and then we start seeing that there's actually a road and there's a car coming from the distance toward us. Well, a bird starts kind of flitting about, and we see this bird and it kind of disappears over a hill and kind of lands in the road. And then all of a sudden it bursts off of the road and flies away as the car comes over the rise and comes toward it. And it's just a great little moment with the bird that, again, was completely accidental, that they just happened to catch on film. And Joel Coen said, we always had great luck with birds. And it's just, I'd have to watch the rest of their films to see if there was any other moments of birds.
Because he's thinking of like a dozen that we've never
I'm sure there
out.
are some other ones, yeah. But I absolutely love that it's just this random accidental little moment where this bird just kind of flits across the screen, lands on the road. I mean, those are the sorts of things that make a shot. Yeah. And they've really lucked out, I think, in the last two films that we've talked about.
Man, didn't even have to pay scale. You can find us at thenextreel.com. And when I say that, I actually mean flickchart.com/thenextreel. And you should join us over there, and you should follow us, and you should participate in our rankings and see if your rankings agree with our rankings. And that's what we're going to do right now.
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
All right, we're going to first talk about Fargo or Moon. Totally, I'm going Fargo.
Yeah, okay.
I like Moon. Don't get
No,
me wrong.
I know you do.
I
You
feel
say
like-
that
I feel
every
like-
week.
I feel like every week Moon is the one that we're
Yeah.
putting things up against, and I'm always picking not Moon. Now, see, this is trickier. Fargo or The Night of the Hunter?
Wow.
Gosh, I feel like I'm gonna go with Fargo, which is, I feel like I'm betraying The Night of the Hunter a
I
little
sort
bit.
of feel like you are too.
Damn.
That was your film.
I love it. I really love it.
I'm gonna do. I mean, I'm easily Fargo on this one. So.
All right. Somewhere out there, I've just lost some credibility with
Yeah. I know.
myself. All right, Fargo or The Thing. Oh man.
See, I'm gonna do The Thing on this
So
one.
tough. I'm gonna do The Thing also. That's just hard to beat. Fargo or The Outlaw Josie Wales. I'm totally going Fargo.
Outlaw Josie Wales.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Over Fargo? Why?
I feel like it is a larger character arc. There is a higher sort of amplitude of the drama in Josie Wales' character, and I love from the opening sequence, that sort of voiceless opening sequence of him and his son plowing the field. I think it is just such a powerful story that I'm just moved by every time I see it. And this one is quaint and lovely, and I love talking about it, and it's no Outlaw Josie Wales for me.
Wow.
I know. Boom.
See, they're much more comparable for me. I'll go Josie Wales because of that last moment with the, where he's dry firing. At the guy.
Yeah, it's yeah.
That's a pretty amazing stuff. Fargo or The Bank Job? I got to go Fargo.
Yeah.
Come on.
I go.
I mean, Bank Job is great. But
Yeah, right.
Fargo or World War Z? Fargo. World War Z is enjoyable, but Fargo is much more interesting things happening in Fargo.
Yeah, I'll give you Fargo, but Fargo with zombies would be better. As long as let the record note.
They should have had that as the quote on the poster. Would have been better with zombies, says Pete Wright from the next reel. Rotten Tomatoes, here we come.
Yep. That's right.
All right. Fargo or The Killing?
I mean, can you see the guy get up after he's shot? He gets up.
She's examining him out in the field, and then
he grabs her. That's a movie. Telling you. All right, what were we talking about?
Well, yeah.
Fargo or
The Killing.
Oh.
That's
Wow.
a tough one. These are
getting harder. This is right.
Sometimes, man.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, sometimes it's a lot easier. This is a tricky one.
Wow. Stanley Kubrick or the Coens. And I'm gonna go Fargo on this one.
Yeah, I think I am too. I'm a little.
I'm gonna go Fargo, and you know why I'm gonna go? I'm gonna go Fargo because of Shep Proudfoot. We didn't talk at all about Shep Proudfoot's character, but I love Shep Proudfoot in this film, and I could watch. You could cut out everything and just give me the quiet, calm Shep Proudfoot fixing a car. Cut straight to the rage of Shep Proudfoot as he beats the hell out of everyone, and I would be a happy man.
Oh man, good old Shep Proudfoot.
Yeah.
They should make a spin-off film about Shep Proudfoot.
They should.
Further
You should get a
adventures.
it actually should be a sitcom.
Well, there's going to be a Fargo TV.
I know we didn't talk about that. That's a sad.
I don't know if it's worth talking about.
All right. So what's so we're gonna do? Are you in agreement?
That's it. Yeah, we went. I did, and
Okay.
so we're 21. 21 out of 107.
Is that our strongest Coen?
I believe so. Let me just kind of zip through here. Yes, it is.
Strongest Coen. Very nice. I love it. Well done. Where are we going next week?
Well, we're continuing drama by the Brothers Coen with No Country for Old Men.
This
And
is
actually,
we're
we're finishing it. Yeah,
That's it? That's the last one.
we're finishing it next week.
I know people are going to be upset about that.
There's a lot of great Coen we can talk about in the future.
Yeah, all right. I'm excited about this. No Country for Old Men.
I love it. It's my favorite of theirs.
Is it really? Okay. I'm excited to see if it is of mine too. Of theirs too. Because there are some others we haven't talked about that I think are right up there.
Interesting. Like?
Well, I don't want to talk about it now. We're going to talk about them later.
All right.
Good night, Andy.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor.
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.